You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Barcelona absolutely destroyed Real Madrid in the Clasico on Sunday evening, and in this video we're going to look at how they did that, paying attention to Xavi's tactics. There's a lot of similarities between Pep Guardiola's Man City and this Barcelona, rather than the old Barcelona with Pep Guardiola. So they play a similar shape, 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1. The wingers stay wide, so this is one of the things that happen throughout. So we'll go through some of the key kind of principles of the game. So Dembele and Torres are always wide here like this, and then the fullbacks would often come inside to be in the kind of half spaces. So they would be in this sorts of zones, we call that a half space. They'd often operate in here rather than being wide we'd normally associate fullback. Now, by having the wingers wide like this, you'd have Aubameyang here, who would often drop as like a false nine kind of player, or just a striker. It's what everyone does now, isn't it? He sort of drops in here to receive the ball. And then you had Pedri making runs from a midfield position, again in the half space. So De Jong and Pedri would often just join the front line like this. One would go, one would stay, and time their runs from deep to get into attacking positions like that. Then you had Busquets, obviously, with two centre-backs covering here. Garcia and Piqué absolutely allowed to hit long balls. It's one of the things they did quite a lot, taking advantage of the space where they could find it in Real Madrid's half. Now, I'll have a little look at how Real Madrid lined up as well before we go into some specifics. Real Madrid were missing Karim Benzema, and it was enormous for them. That's one of the big problems they had in this game. So Carlo Ancelotti decided to play Luka Modric as a false nine kind of player. So Ancelotti, in his autobiography, has said that he loves a 4-4-2 diamond the most, and this is like a 4-4-2 diamond with split strikers. So Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. able to come inside the pitch and attack sort of these positions here. But in defence, what they did was they pressed with like Kroos and Modric as a forward two, like this. They stayed very compact. So Modric and Kroos would be like this, as a front two. You'd have Vinicius and Rodrigo quite tight in the four, and Valverde and Casemiro would be in the middle behind them as well. Valverde was getting box to box and joining attacks. Casemiro stays back as the anchor. But the other problem they had was at fullback. So Nacho is basically a centre back playing at left back. And part of the thing with Xavi's 4-3-3 is that he wants to isolate wingers 1v1 with a fullback. And Dembele just had him beaten all the way through the game. So even though Dembele was making mistakes and quite a few loose passes, giving the ball away in the first half, and then later in the second half where he was substituted, Dembele against Nacho was a battle that Nacho was never going to win. In addition to Alaba having an absolute shocker of a game, terrible, just missing headers and looking dragged out of position. Eder Militao was their centre-back here. They were playing a man-marking system at the back, and Carvajal was torn apart time and time and again by Ferran Torres. Carvajal was here, he would not get any cover whatsoever, and Torres would often just have him like, with loads of space behind, and so he was able to then, again, be able to get 1v1. But one of the things they did was playing these long passes to exploit the space left behind the line that Real Madrid left. Now these long balls, what they were doing with this is that Pedri could either get in behind here if he wanted, De Jong could run in behind, but often when they were just trying to build from the back, they would just suddenly hit a massive long ball out like this. So Torres could make this sort of run. So he could make this run in behind, to squeeze in behind the fullback and the centre-back. And early in the first few minutes, maybe third or fourth minute, ball with this come over the top, Torres was in, and it wasn't for the ball just being slightly overhit, they'd have been cleaned through. They did this throughout, and Real Madrid just weren't able to do anything about it. What they think they were trying to do, I'm not sure this is exactly what it was, but I think Modric and Kroos are meant to be a forward two, sort of start of the block, start of the press. So that means that the ball has to go wide rather than going into Busquets, because they can cover this. Modric can come across and cover Busquets as a pass, which eliminates him as a link, which should mean that Pedri has to drop into this position here to get in. But because Alba is not wide, he's kind of here, he's really in play with Garcia and Piqué. What Ancelotti was trying to do is play in the counter and attack space Barca would leave, because the way you think they're going to play is short passes. If there's a turnover, if there's a loose ball, say they play one of these long balls they expect, and then it gets knocked out by Alaba and Casemiro, then suddenly you've got Vinicius can attack the space, Rodrigo can attack the space, because Alba, as they progress up the pitch, Alba's going to naturally move up either in half space or wide to overlap Torres when he does do that. Because Torres will sometimes join as a front two as well. So sometimes you see Alba do this, getting up like that. So say that's what's going to happen. And then Araujo would push up a little bit as a right back, not quite as far as the other players, but Dembele would be here, that's you. Then suddenly you've got this burst of pace, also with Valverde, because he was doing this too constantly. So your attacking three, it was really these three players versus the Barcelona defence. And you saw this a couple of times when Barca were caught, like 3v4 at the back, maybe Araujo was back here. and you suddenly had a turnover, and these guys burst up the pitch, Valverde and Vinicius and Rodrigo. That's kind of what they were trying to do, exploit the space. And so then you see Modric and Kroos, you think they're playing as forwards, they're not. They're just sort of starting the press, but then it becomes a 4-3-3. So you think of that traditional 2-3-5 shape that every team tends to play with. Carvajal provides your attacking width, Nacho comes up here, and then that's your width from these guys here. There was a lot of method to what Ancelotti was doing, didn't quite work. The thing that definitely didn't work was the man marking system that Real Madrid were playing at the back. So at the back, someone like Militao is following someone tight, Alaba is following someone tight. When they move, they go with them. It's meant to be a man-to-man system to make sure they don't get any time and space on the ball. Up front, this is what they're kind of marking as from a goal kick, for example. So Barcelona, they want to build from the back. So if you have this front two of Modric and Kroos, they are man-to-man with the two centre-backs, and then you have Valverde who's going up here, Rodrigo coming inside like this, because we know the full-backs are kind of inverted, they're not playing tight to the wing most of the time, they're mostly in like this. So then you get that two lines, it's 2 and a 3 versus a 2 and a 3. So that's what I think Ancelotti was trying to do, is match the man-to-man to try and force them into making risky passes into someone like Pedri or out wide to Torres, or just long where they can win it with a header. And Serie A, Alaba and Militao should have the beating of Aubameyang and players like Pedri, because he's very small. But then, what instead happens in this particular example I've set up is that Militao doing what he's told, Pedri's up here, sort of forming part of the front line, because again, he was moving up and down the pitch all the time. This is one of the things that Xavi's Barca do, is there's lots of midfield runners, whereas in his playing days, Xavi would stick around and tap the ball, Pedri makes runs. Now, Pedri's here, he drops in to offer the solution, Militao follows him tight, then it leaves this massive gap, and they did this all the time, and because the wingers are so wide, it's forcing the fullbacks like really far apart, and obviously that's a bit of a problem for Real, because then you've got Alaba on his own here. Now Alaba's doing this, and as Alaba's doing this, looking after Aubameyang, what happens is De Jong spots the run into space, the ball comes long, I think this is it might be in the second half, it's one of the halves anyway, it doesn't matter. De Jong gets in, and then he's just got Aubameyang making a run off the back of Alaba, and he can just, well, before he's offside, he can get the ball into Aubameyang. I think they maybe score here, I can't remember, but this is one passage of play that we definitely saw. And the man marking system was just pulled apart time and time again because of these runs. If it wasn't De Jong making the run, it was Pedri. So it gets similar sort of thing. If Aubameyang dropped deep, in fact, this is an example of something they did. Often Aubameyang would drop deep in here. He'd be followed by Militao mostly. And as he's doing that, I mean, Pedri can go into this space here, or Torres can go into this space here, or Dembele can get inside this space here. The man marking system that Ancelotti used kind of works. It's similar to what Bielsa has done at Leeds, but it got torn apart again and again and again. Also, Alaba was just playing badly, Militao was playing badly. The players were not having a good time whatsoever. But there's one more thing we should look at in this game, and that is the first goal. So I'm going to start with Dembele here. So he sets it up with a pass that he makes. Now, the defence is stretched apart, like we've been saying, with Carvajal, Militao, Alaba and Nacho really divided, leaving space in this middle part here, and the idea is that wherever he goes, he gets followed. Again, if he drops in, someone goes with him. But what happens in this goal is that Dembele is left 1v1 with Nacho, and as we know, that is not a battle he's going to win, so Dembele is easily just able to get him across. And Barca can isolate him 1v1 with him because of the way they're putting all the bodies in the middle. So they're playing through the middle most of the time, but they're stretching the play with width. So sometimes they'll have to switch it out to here, but then they'll move the whole team across to that side. So you imagine everyone shifts over to then isolate one on the other side. It's one of the reasons Adama Traore's been so good for Barca since he signed for them, is that when he plays in that wing, so that, you know, naturally the defence moves over, but he just gets to have all the space here. So now the fullback comes across to get to him when the ball is switched, and then it's a 1v1. Traore's absolutely amazing, will go past anyone for pace and he can dribble, but his decision making and cross ability isn't amazing. Dembele's is good. So he gets past Nacho, nice and easy, and just is able to send a ball into the near post, and this is the benefit of having Aubameyang rather than Luke de Jong, as he's quick, he can keep up with the rest of the team. Gets in and heads past. Alaba just can't get to it, that's what I'm trying to say. Alaba and Militao stare at each other angry. That's the first goal. Nice and easy. Dembele, so the tactics worked. Isolated 1v1 with the fullback, exactly the way Barca want to do it. They've got Aubameyang making a run from deep to get in, to attack at the near post, score a goal. Second goal they concede is from a corner. It's Araujo absolutely dominating in the box against, I think it's Vinicius, who just doesn't bother tracking him as he goes in to score the header. And then the third goal, which just kills it off. So at the start of the second half, Ancelotti made changes. He wanted to change how this team was playing, and so what he did was put Alaba to left back. You had Militao inside still. I think Nacho went inside. Mariano comes on up front. Kroos comes off and is replaced by Camavinga. Bit more dynamism, can go from box to box. So suddenly you have Camavinga, Casemiro, Valverde, Camavinga. Then you've also got Modric, You still have Rodrigo and Vinicius, but I don't really know what this shape is. It's sort of like a diamond with this here, with Modric here, and then these three, but then they're expecting these guys to do an awful lot of work. And from the very start of the half, this is essentially Torres, Dembele and Aubameyang 1v1 with these guys as a man-marking system. So in the very start of the half, they were getting so many chances to the middle. De Jong and Pedri getting in behind. Yeah, they took the lead early on. I think Torres gets in and scores a shot like this. He'd already had a chance getting in behind from kickoff, basically, exploiting the space left behind. Then Ancelotti made further changes, couldn't rescue it. They were absolutely done. The players individually were poor. The tactical setup from Ancelotti was just destroyed by how Barcelona played. But it's Xavi's tactical setup that made all the difference. Having Pedri and De Jong make these box-to-box runs, having Torres and Dembele hug the touchline to give space to stretch the defence out, using Garcia and Piqué to make long balls. It's not a thing you think of as Barcelona, playing long balls over the top, but you can do it if you've got space in behind. And so that's what they did. Absolutely destroyed them. It was a really fun game, probably not for Real Madrid fans. That's how I saw the Clasico. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give the video a like if you enjoyed it too. That's it. Subscribe. Have a nice time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do enjoy Tifo, then you'll probably also like The Athletic. If you watch our tactics videos, you should go and read Michael Cox. If you're into data, read Mark Carey. And if you're into transfers, it's David Ornstein. Plus, if you're a fan of any Premier League team, then there's a journalist dedicated to you, and you can try it for free for 30 days now by clicking the link in the description.